Ahoy there, me hearties, and welcome back to Rolls on the High Seas, the series where we talk about rolls on the high seas. We did that already, though, in the chef video, where they were making nice buttery rolls on the high seas. Yes, indeed. So this is an authentic flintlock pistol. They would have used these in the Great Age of Piracy right here. This is an authentic beauty. This was, excavated personally at the bottom of the Caribbean. I had it refurbished just for the sake of this video. Probably really honestly shouldn't even be using it. But, it's for a YouTube video, so yeah, let's go ahead. This is not an actual weapon. This is fake. It's very clearly fake, just to specify. Even though it doesn't have the orange cap at the end, it's very, very clearly fake. It's like, there we go. Okay. So today's video, we're going to be talking about the gunner, or the sharpshooter, or the sniper in Usopp's case. Usopp's title on the crew is sniper, because he uses, a slingshot to fire shots at people. I wonder if there's a reason why he uses a slingshot and not a rifle or a pistol. I wonder if it's like, I don't know, like, I doubt it, but could there be an issue with, like, we don't want one of the main characters of our shonen manga going around shooting people in the head? Maybe that was, like, one of the reasons, or maybe Oda just thought, like, no, a slingshot works better, I'm not sure. I just wonder why he decided, no, Usopp's going to use a slingshot. It could also maybe be for the option for different kinds of ammo. I mean, I guess with a gun, you could have the same kind of, like, different sorts of bullets, like exploding bullets and, like, spicy hot pepper bullet, and just fire. They would have made the scene with Mr. Five a little differently, I think that was maybe the reason. So he could have Usopp make all of his special kind of star attacks and then load them up into ammunition and then fire them with his slingshot instead of loading them into a gun, Also, I mean, like, it's not really an issue in One Piece, but the way that flintlock pistols and rifles worked back in the day, it took a really long time for them to reload. So you don't really see that in One Piece, though. Every gun is fairly automatic, or at least semi-automatic, right? Yeah, so that's just how it is. But, it gives Usopp a very unique flavor using a slingshot, right? So, historically, of course, pirate ships had cannons. So did marine ships and various vessels at sea. I mean, it's probably just a good idea to bring some cannons along. Like, even if you aren't, like, a naval vessel or a pirate vessel, just, like, if you're any kind of ship, having a cannon might give you a sense of security, you know what I mean? So, being the gunner on a pirate ship, what did that all entail? Well, it was a dedicated position, so unlike musicians that just anybody can just kind of take up that role, no, somebody had to be the gunner, and more specifically, the head of the gunning crew, okay? It couldn't just be one person maintaining all of the ammunitions on a ship, because, that there's a lot of it, depending on the size of the vessel. I was looking into exactly how many cannons there would be on a ship, and it really just comes down to, like, as you would imagine, how big the ship was, because cannons, turns out, are pretty heavy. Cannonballs also pretty heavy. And gunpowder, while might not be heavy as just like a scoop of it in your hand, you ever just go out into a barrel and just get a big scoop of gunpowder? Doesn't weigh very much. But if you have giant barrels of the stuff, that also adds to the weight. So you gotta be careful, because too much weight on a pirate ship, that doesn't end well, alright? So yeah, I mean, if you had a giant galleon-sized ship, I mean, maybe you could get like 30, 40 cannons on that son of a bitch, but like, if you had a smaller vessel, maybe keep it to less than 10 would probably be a good idea. You also have to balance everything out properly, so there's not like too much weight on one side of the ship to unbalance and everything like that, right? But even while not in naval combat, you gotta make sure that those cannons are well maintained, because when an actual fight breaks out, you don't want to be caught with your pants down on that one. Quite literally. I imagine at some point in the Great Age of Piracy, a naval battle broke out and somebody on the crew was probably caught with their pants down. Might have even been the captain. That would have been really funny if the captain had to take a shit or something and was like, all right, I'm the captain of this vessel. I'm going to go take a shit now on the poop deck. I really hope we don't get into a naval battle while this is happening. And, like, maybe it was a little rough, depending on oh, man, I ate a lot of hardtack. Oh, man, this is taking forever. And then, boom! It's like, damn it, why now? Wouldn't have been fun. Would not have been fun, right? So you got to make sure that not everybody is scrambling and, like, load the cannons in the cannonball. I mean, load the cannonballs in the cannon. And then you're dead, because the enemy ship ship has fired at you, okay? So, you know, cannons need to be lubricated. They need to be properly maintained. They need to be inspected. And that was one responsibility the gunner and his crew would have, you know, going through probably every single day, I would imagine even maybe multiple times a day, making sure these cannons are ready to fire. And in fact, there actually were different varieties of cannonballs. So this wasn't just like a thing with Usopp that has like his special attack, you know, exploding star or Tabasco star or whatever. No, there were actually different kinds of cannonballs they would load and fire at an enemy ship. Some of them were very terrifying, and we'll get into them in a second. None of them involved Tabasco, but, you know, some of them were pretty cool and kind of like a little bit of ingenuity on taking out and crippling your enemy's ship, okay? Because remember, at the end of the day, these are pirates too. I mean, sinking a ship that's shooting at you, that's all well and good, you know, it's fine and dandy, but ultimately you want to like sack the ship and board it and take all their crap because you're pirates, right? So you don't want to sink the ship, so you just want to disengage it to the point where it can't go anywhere, you like destroy the ship's sails and stuff, and there was actually some interesting techniques they would have to do that, right? So as for the gunpowder, where would that be kept on a ship? Well, as you can imagine, this is something that's a little bit volatile because, you know, if you have a bunch of barrels of this shit all loaded into a single room, a single spark, and it's bye-bye, baby, okay? It's gone, all right? Like, all of it is gone. So there would be a place called the magazine on the ship. I didn't really look into it, but I'm assuming that's the origin of, like, when you say, like, a gun magazine, like reloading a gun with a magazine. That's probably the origin of that. So you'd have the gunpowder magazine on a ship. This would be kept below decks, positioned somewhere on the ship that would balance the ship out in terms of weight. So you had to be careful with that. And the gunning crew would go in there, and there would actually be specifications sometimes and be very, very cautious on who can enter this room and wearing what. Because you got to be very, very careful. If a single spark goes off, it's done. So sometimes you actually would have to change into special clothing to go into the magazine and have no metal on you, just to mitigate the risk completely that there would not be a spark here, okay? So that would be the situation with the magazine, okay? Anybody that actually knows stuff about guns is probably, like, just rubbing their head right now, like, okay, Tekking, I know you're doing your best, but, like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. Well, here's the thing. This past summer, I went to Gettysburg, and I actually did learn a little bit. I got this little cannon figure when I was there, yes. Anyway, I learned a little bit about how cannons fired in Gettysburg. I've lost some of that knowledge because it was like 3 months ago, but I'll try my best. Okay. So, in order to load a cannon, though, follow me on this. Okay. You're going to need gunpowder, right? Yeah, that's a thing you need. You're going to need cannonball. Okay. Cannonball, gunpowder. You're going to need a long, like, ramrod kind of thing, which is a fun word to say, ramrod, to like throw it down there. And there's probably something else I'm forgetting. Probably, I don't know, like there's some kind of wrapping paper or something you shove in there too. There's some other feature of this, but I don't know. You just shove that into a cannon, right? Okay. So what about when the battles are finally getting started? So let's set the stage for you here, okay? So you're at sea, and the captain is upstairs taking a shit, and then all of a sudden an enemy vessel, maybe like a naval vessel or something, rounds the corner of an island or something, and you didn't notice it was there, and it's like, oh crap, that's the Navy. They're coming to fight us. Maybe they launched the first volley. Maybe you got to launch the first volley. They're probably going to because your captain is currently indisposed. So it's like the battle is on. Okay, so what kind of tactics do you got here? The gunner he has his men with him, and he's like, okay, men, we will begin the attack, okay? Whatever pirating terms you use. All right, me hearties, it's time! This is what we trained for! Load up the balls and fire them with great thunderous roars! Okay, there you go. That's what you do. That's what I would say if I was the gunner on a pirate crew. Not sure if, I don't know, everybody's like, you know, we're impressed, or like, that's super cringe, but whatever. Okay, so the standard kind of cannonball that they would fire is round shot. This is pretty standard. It's a cannonball made of solid cast iron, okay? Back in the day, it wasn't just used as a cast iron skillet, they were also used as cannonballs, although maybe you could fire a cast iron skillet. I mean, it would be pretty handy if the enemy crew got on ship. You might want to have a cast iron skillet to knock somebody in the head with, okay? We'll get into close quarters combat in a moment, exactly how that went. But anyway, round shot, pretty simple. But on top of round shot, we got some other options here. We got, Grape shot and canister shot. This was pretty nasty. You basically just take a bunch of like mini balls inside of a casing, you load it in, you fire it, and it's the shotgun effect. You know, it fires off in a large radius, and this was used to clear the deck. So when the enemy ship kind of got close enough, I know we're picturing a naval battle happening over like great distances, and I'm sure that's how a lot of them would start, but you know, the accuracy of these things isn't the best. So unless you are like Usopp or Yasop or Ben Beckman and you're like really good and skilled, and it's like, oh hey, there's an enemy ship and it's a really far distance away, and you got Usopp and he's like, don't worry, I got this. There's no way you'll hit him. Just wait. Hold on. This is gonna be good. Bam! Dead center shot, takes out the ship in one go. Not even sure if you could do that, but maybe that cannonball hits their gunpowder magazine, ignites, and then the whole thing goes up, right? Yeah, sure, Usopp would probably be able to do that, but in a lot of naval combat, you know, you start off, you got to get closer to actually deal damage to the other crew, right? So this would be like clearing the decks out. You know, you get a cannon, it's like you're right there next to the enemy ship, you load it with canister shot or grape shot, you fire it, shotgun effect. Anybody that gets, I mean, even within range of this is going down. Okay, it's pretty bad. It's gonna like just eviscerate you when you get close enough, okay? Which is the case with a lot of these, but yeah. This is a pretty cool thing. So they had stuff called chain shot and bar shot, okay? So here's what they did. A good way to disable an enemy vessel without completely destroying it would be to destroy the sails, because this is the age of sailing, you know? This is the great pirate era, okay? Late 1600s into the early 1700s is like the era we're talking about specifically here. So if you wreck a ship's mast and their sails, can't really go anywhere, makes it easy pickings at that point. So if the goal is to destroy a sail, what they would do is they would load up chain shot, and this is really cool. They would take 2 cannonballs. Sometimes they would be 2 full cannonballs. Other times it'd be like a cannonball cut in half, and there'd be a length of chain between these 2 cannonballs, or 2 halves of a cannonball. They would load that into a cannon, fire it, and then it would be 2 chained cannonballs whizzing through the air. I mean, that would kill anybody that it comes in contact with if it was close enough range, but more importantly, wider shot. It hits the mast, it hits the sails, that's going to rip it to kingdom come. All right, so that sail is not going to be working anymore for you, right? And then bar shot, kind of the same similar principle. You get 2 cannonballs with a big chunk of metal iron bar in the center of it, right? Kind of like a dumbbell kind of thing. Load that into a cannon, fire that off. Also wider range, it goes whizzing through the air like this thing, like giant like dumbbell or whatever, slamming into the sail. That's going to destroy the crap out of it, and you're not going to be able to go anywhere anymore. Isn't history fun? Human beings have really come up with a bunch of different ways to destroy things and kill people over the centuries. It's rather scary and terrifying, but sometimes the ingenuity is like, wow, okay. So what else did they have? They had some heated shots. This is pretty simple. You take a cast iron cannonball, heat it up, get it really, 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 really hot, load it into a cannon, fire that at the enemy. See what happens with that. I want to know the guy that invented that shit. It was just like, hey dudes, what if we, like, this pirate talks like a California surfer bra kind of guy. Hey dudes, I just had a crazy idea, bros. We take one of these cannonballs and we like stick it in the oven or like in the forge. We get it like really, really hot, because like you touch hot metal, it's like, ow, dude. You load that into the cannon and you fire it, and it hits the other ship, and it like could start a fire or something, right? And then like that would do like a lot of damage. Tubular, bro, you know, and so they would do that, right? Okay, just heat stuff up and fire it. They would just load scrap metal up and fire it sometimes, but I don't know how, like, actually often they would do that, because when I was in Gettysburg, me and my dad, we're in the Gettysburg Museum, you know, where you start like the battlefield tours and everything like that, right? So we're in there, and in the Gettysburg Museum, I have images of it. I'll throw them up. There's a big wall of like just all the weapons that were used in the war, like all the different pistols, all the different revolvers and rifles, and you know, they had all the cannons and all the things you would load into the cannons and everything, like everything on this wall, the different size of ammunitions they would use. And there was a guy kind of just walking around the museum. museum. He was a nice guy, and he had an actual cannonball with him, and I got to hold it, and he's pretty damn heavy, as you could imagine. And he's like, yeah, this is a real cannonball, and we were talking to him about the different kinds of artillery they used and stuff like that. And I asked him, I was like, hey, I've heard stories about people like loading a bunch of random shit in here. I didn't say random shit, but like loading like silverware and cutlery and just anything they could find and just throwing it in there and then blasting it. And he looked at me and he's like, no, people didn't really do that. I mean, I've heard stories about people taking casings and every single regiment in the Civil War basically had one story. There was one dude at some point that was like, yeah, I loaded up my busted up cutlery into this casing, loaded it up into the cannon and fired it, and I killed like 3 people with it. So there were a lot of those stories kind of going around during the Civil War, and I'm sure back then it was kind of the same thing. It's one thing in the chaos of battle when nobody can really track shit, and then after the battle is over, let's say the pirates win, there's going to be some bluster and bravado going on the ship, right? There's going to be some dude walking around with a big swinging dick being like, hey, did you see that one shot? Dude, I loaded up all of my crap, like all this like busted up raw metal into that casing, and I fired it, and I killed like 5 people with that shot. Did you see that shit? Be like, no, man, we didn't really see that. Oh, I did it. It was pretty damn cool. Shot of a lifetime, man. I'm the MVP of that battle. I was like, okay, man, sure you are. Okay, right? Yeah, I'm sure that crap happened. You know it did, right? So yeah, that was different kinds of stuff they would use. Now, they had some other methods. I mean, obviously it wasn't just, the cannons that they were using when you're in the middle of combat. When the ships get close enough to board them, they had stuff there. They had flintlock pistols, as I said. However, unlike One Piece, these are not semi-automatic. These are like negative automatic. Okay, these are like the exact opposite. So you fire a shot with this thing, right? It's, you fire a shot. You got to take out the next, bullet. You got to load it in there. You got to take out the miniature ramrod. You got to load it down. You got to put the powder in there, too, at some point. You got to, get this all ready to go. And, it would take a while. It would take a while. Under the best kind of circumstances, if you're just, like, firing at, like, a target and you're not being tried to, the other people aren't trying to stab you while you're doing this, it could maybe take, 30 seconds, a minute or so, maybe a little quicker if you really know what you're doing and you've been practicing like crazy, which I imagine a lot of them did. But still, when the heat is on and you're getting shot at, you could stumble and fumble, and you could be like, oh, I took my shot with my flintlock. Time to reload. Oh shit, I dropped my bullet. Oh shit, I dropped the ramrod. Oh, the powder. Oh man. You might be all fingers and it might be not that great. So, I think that's why we see a lot of pirates like historical Blackbeard, Edward Thatch. What he would wear is have a bunch of flintlock pistols on him. So he could just pull one out, take a shot, and if he had to just drop it at that point, that's also why these guns back in the day, like the stocks were not made out of cheap plastic from a Spirit Halloween store. They were made out of wood, and you could use them as a club if you needed to, right? So this is why pirates, they would rely a lot more on like bladed weaponry, because this is a little bit more, less prone to jam, and you don't have to reload a sword, you know what I mean? You just slice people with a sword. They had swords, they had daggers, they had caltrops. So that was something that Usopp also got right there. You had caltrops that you would throw out on the enemy deck. People have to step around those things, getting their foot like all cut up with caltrops. That's not fun, right? They would have a bunch of stuff that they would use there. And they also had these things called boarding axes. So that name is kind of self-explanatory, but it's an axe that, one end would be used to like, cut people, but also board a ship. And then the other side would be like a hammer that you could use to like smack people around once you got onto the deck. So, I'm imagining this stuff was very fast-paced as well. Like once you boarded, it's time to go. It's action time. You get on there as the pirate crew. You shoot your shots with your flintlocks. You don't have time to reload. Maybe flip that son of a bitch around, smack people over the head with it, take out your boarding axe. You're cutting people up, throwing caltrops on the freaking deck. And also, whatever ship you're boarding, they're trying to kill you too. They have all the same stuff, Meanwhile, the captain is still taking a shit, and he's not even halfway done with that yet, so that's going to be a while. It was insane, I'm sure, right? Okay, but Just be glad. Just be glad we never had to live in, like, naval combat era. That wouldn't have been fun. Naval combat now is a little bit differently. We have, like, missiles and, like, you know, GPS and satellites and torpedoes and, you know, like, tracking radar and shit like that. It's just the old days of just using old powdered, you know, like, powdered cannons. Powder cannons. That's what they used to be called back in the day. I'm a munitions expert, of course I am. The old powder cannons. Yeah, all right. Anyway. Oh, I also looked this up just because I was curious how many cannons could be on a ship. You know, like what ship had the most cannons? This was a little bit later, so this was around the 1800s, late 1700s. This was in 1805. Well, the ship was built a little earlier than that, but this was the HMS Victory. And it's not really a big surprise why it was called the HMS Victory, because it had 104 fucking cannons on it. 104 cannons, captained by Horatio Nelson during the Battle of Trafalgar, which I think Law was part of that maybe, and that was during 1805, but I think the ship was like 1785, 1765, somewhere around there is when the ship was built. And it's still in commission today. Like, it's still an active vessel today, oddly enough. But yeah, that's a ship with a lot of cannons. A lot of cannons, I'll tell you what. Yeah, and I mean also, like, we're talking about this now as, like, part of this series about fictional pirates and everything like that, talking about real pirates, but I'll tell you what, like, if you were in a naval battle and you got even grazed, like, let's say they load up that grape shot and they fired it. Let's say you didn't die from that, but your eye got cut off or blown off, or you got, like, grazed and that arm gets infected, you know, and gangrene and shit, and it's just... you're just dead at that point. You know what I mean? If you get grazed by a bullet, might as well have just, you know, shot you right between the freaking eyeballs at that point, you know? You might have survived. It's not 100% guarantee you would have died, but, like, it's not looking good. Or the old sawbones might have to come out and cut off your arm, you know, when the infection starts getting really bad. It's kind of the only medical treatment they really had for you, right? So yeah, anyway, that's the video. Hope you all enjoyed. I also go in a little bit into, like, the different roles in the actual One Piece stories. So, like, you know, I went over the helmsmen, like Jinbei and Burgess. But the thing is, there's a lot of people in the One Piece world that are classified as snipers that use guns. Like, everybody, like, so Mr. Five. I don't think Mr. Five was, like, a dedicated gunner on a ship, but he used a gun, so he's classified as that, right? But, of course, the most famous marksmen and snipers and gunners in the One Piece world are, you got Usopp, you got his father, Yasopp, and Ben Beckman. Even though Ben Beckman doesn't really shoot anybody with his rifle, he just kind of clubs people over the head with them. But, you know, it's close enough. You're killing somebody with a gun, so there you are. All right, anyway, let's roll that D10 and see who's coming up next. All right, so Doctor would be 6, if we're talking about that. I'll throw the chart up here, over here, who we have to talk about. I don't think we've done Navigator yet, or Doctor. Shipwright, we haven't done Shipwright yet. That'll be 8 for Frankie. And, yeah, are those the only ones left? Let's see, we did Luffy and Zoro. Usopp was today. Sanji we already did. Did Robin's earlier. Yeah, I think we only have 3 positions left. Navigator, Shipwright, and Doctor. So let's see who we get. Da-da-da-da! 6! Oh yeah, right on the money. First try. So next time, catch us back here, and we'll be discussing the Doctor role on the high seas. Spoiler alert, it involves a lot of saws.